On this day, in 1830, a lengthy letter to the editor was published in the Sydney Monitor, penned by none other than Sir George Murray, His Majesty's Principal Secretary of State for the Colonies. The lengthy manifesto contained the contents of a very important letter discovered a year prior in the cell of a condemned prisoner after execution at HM Jail in Sydney. If you cast your mind back to our 19th of April video regarding John Brungar's execution, he'd not been alone on the gallows. 2 other convicts from Moreton Bay Penal Settlement had been hanged alongside him for a similar murder. On the 2nd of February 1829, Thomas Matthews and Thomas Allen had been part of a 6-man jail gang working on the outskirts of the settlement. Having been waiting for the right opportunity to abscond for some time, they'd grown suspicious of a fellow inmate, John Carroll. Concerned Carroll was plotting to alert the overseer of a pending escape, Matthews waited until the coast was clear and smashed Carroll over the head with his spade. Whilst the man was lying senseless on the ground, Allen walked over and finished the job with a hefty blow from his mattock to Carroll's skull, and both men were transported to Sydney, tried and sentenced to death by hanging alongside John Brungar on the 18th of April 1829. Matthews had been quite outspoken about the conditions at Moreton Bay while standing on the gallows. However, he'd also secretly left a damning written account of the settlement's administration in his cell just prior to being walked to the hangman's noose. This letter, once discovered, seemed to have been quietly filed away by administrators unknown. However, it resurfaced a year later in protest of legislative amendments proposed by Governor Darling. Matthews' manifesto provides an amazing insight into the sheer brutality that was rife at Moreton Bay in the late 1820s, bolstering its notoriety as a hellhole of punishment and severity. From its contents, the letter is quite clear that not only were the convict overseers killing prisoners on a regular basis, but Commandant Patrick Logan also revelled in the pain and suffering of the settlement's prison population. In order to best expound the conditions at the penal settlement that became Brisbane, it's important to record Matthews' letter in full. All the overseers and constables and officers at the penal settlement of Moreton Bay are such a herd of tyrants that never met together in one place before. The Commandant gives prisoners 200 lashes for attempting to run away. The last 100 I got was for a mere trifle, and when I had got 75, the flogger was ordered to rest himself and I was left at the triangles with the blood running down into my trousers. I was suffered to remain drying in the hot sun till my back was one blotch of scab, and when this cemented, the flogger was ordered to begin again. James Davison, son of Mr. Davidson of the Hawkesbury River, a respectable emigrant, and who was married to the daughter of Mr. Sutter, another emigrant settler of Balcombe Hills, got 100 because he, being an overseer, did not get his men punished according to orders. And when he had got 100, he happened to say, "This is all for nothing." The Commandant, hearing him, said, "Tie him up and give him 50 more. He got it and was then taken to the hospital. The convict overseers at Moreton Bay murder many a bright man. 3 days before this affair of mine happened, Trennan, the convict overseer of the jail gang, killed a man dead with a spade in the presence of 8 or 10 men. But such was the terror of Trennan, none of them dared to mention it for fear of being flogged to death. Another convict overseer of the name of Green beat a man of the name of Ford with a stick to that degree that he was taken to the hospital and died. In his dying moments, he declared that Green was his murderer, but no prisoner dared to speak of it. There was at one time at the settlement only ½ a pound of bread a day, yet the men at that time went out at 4 o'clock in the morning to work and came home at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. There was at that time men who could not do so much work, and Green made several of the men in his gang bring him 1/4 of a pound of their bread every morning, which they gave him in order that he might not work them so hard. Many men die in the cells at Moreton Bay for want of attention and food, as the Commandant sentences them to a month or 6 weeks for stealing a cob of corn, even when the rations are so short. Men in the cells get a pound of siftings bread a day. Many men die from ill usage, such as beating, kicking, and other violence from the cruel overseers. Some men, being feeble, drop down from hard work coupled with starvation and die. They may be said to crawl at times rather than walk, they are so weak. Some men have been so severely flogged as not to be able to stand, and afterwards have been taken to the triangles in a wheelbarrow to take the second portion of their punishment. One time, the commandant came out and sent for all the cripples out of the hospital and flogged them. Some of them were flogged still on their crutches. At another time, having had words in the house, the commandant came out and ordered a gang of men, overseers and all, to be flogged without trial or formal accusation. There was a man who had been flogged every morning for some time. The commandant said one morning to him, "Show me your back and let me see if you can take another 100. The man proceeded to take off his shirt when the whole mass sticking to the shirt came off in a scab. The commandant said to the flogger, "You must give him the rest on the breech." There was a man got 200 lashes for running away. The commandant said, "Let one flogger get on one side of him and another on the other and give him his sentence lash for lash." The man received the 200 lashes, was taken to the hospital and died soon after, yet no man durst speak of it. With such an horrific account of the way that convicts were treated, it's no surprise that a couple of months later, in October 1830, when news reached Moreton Bay Penal Settlement that Commandant Patrick Logan had been killed near current-day Caminya, west of Ipswich, every convict in the settlement rejoiced.